children are taken to school for purposes of safekeeping, but also for purposes of learning. But when that particular purpose is taken down and watered down to teachers exploiting their children, to lecturers harassing their students, then I think it's worth having a conversation on grounds of defilement in schools and sex for marks in universities. Joining me to discuss this very touching and very sensitive conversation is a panel of distinguished ladies and gentlemen who will help us unpack tonight's conversation. My name is Douglas Onen. I'm your host and moderator for tonight's conversation. But before we get into the conversation, I'll quickly let my panelists go ahead and introduce themselves. Then we can begin the conversation. I'll begin right at my extreme right, the lady in red.
Thank you, Drake. My name is Aloikin Opoloje. I'm a student from Makerere University. Currently interning at the Human Rights and Peace Center of Makerere University. And I also volunteer with Donor Initiative as their media associate. So at Donor Initiative, we look at sexual reproductive health rights and so much more. So I'm really glad to be here. I'm a mother, and this topic is really one that is pertinent to me.
Definitely, it must be very pertinent to you. And looking forward to getting your wonderful insights. The last time I met Praise, she always says she beat me in a debate.
I did.
We shall get to that. Let's listen in to the only gentleman on the show who will help us bring in the perspective of men.
Good afternoon, viewers. It's always a pleasure to be here, and good afternoon to my fellow panelists. My name is Nyombi Haruna from Islamic University in Uganda, Kampala campus. I bring you greetings from the students. They are great fans of this show. It's a pleasure to be amongst this good panel. Definitely. So that we discuss this great topic.
Definitely. It's a pleasure having you on board as well.
Sorry,
I understand Islamic laws are very stringent when it comes to issues to do with sexual violence or sexual harassment. So we'd also love to get that insight from a religious perspective as you unpack tonight's conversation. Last but not least, the lady in specs. You're most welcome.
Thank you very much. My name is Ajuna Precious Gifts. My first year at Uganda Christian University, pursuing a bachelor in laws, and I'm happy to be on this show.
Definitely. We're very happy to have you here as well. Precious. So let's begin the conversation. I just want us to make this conversation as casual, but at the same time as sentimental as possible. Praise, you made mention that you're a mother. Yeah. When you received this particular conversation, as a way of us starting, or as a way of your introductory remark, what came into your mind, seeing a topic, if you read the Daily Monitor, I hope you saw what happened in a particular school that I won't mention the name. Yes. A primary 7 pupil was defiled by the head teacher. Yeah, there are numerous allegations of lecturers harassing their students for marks, but we shall handle that at the other half of the show. But for now, I want us to talk about defilement in schools. But before we get to that, quick introduction. How did you feel?
Okay. I felt disturbed because this is not a new story. It's been happening. But apart from feeling disturbed, it just reminded me so much about how people today are so entitled to their needs than the needs of other people, you know? As, let's say, a head teacher, for example, in the case that you give, the fact that you can sleep with 7 young girls, you know, someone that should be a father figure in these girls' lives, it means you took your sexual needs beyond the trauma they would face after this act, the future that could actually be there for them. Because in one of the cases, I read that he procured an abortion for one of the girls. So he put this girl in a place where she had to choose between her life and the life of the baby. You understand? So people have constantly over time, in the question of morals, looked at what they benefit rather than how it affects the people that these actions they are doing will affect at the end of the day. But also it sort of pointed to how society has always preached the gospel of morals. And I feel that has perpetuated the problem of defilement in primary. The first thing is that in society, we are taught that sex is a taboo. I remember there was a conversation that came up when we sought to address whether sex education should be taught at the primary level. And if it's taught at the primary level, where should it start? And people are like, you're not going to start talking about sex with our young children. But your young children every day are surrounded by predators that are willing to introduce them to sex the wrong way. You understand? So the fact that sex is a taboo, when a girl gets sexual advances from a teacher, when a girl gets sexual advances from fellow classmates, they'll fear to report this story. And it's worse if it's a boy in society, because society already paints a picture like a boy cannot be sexually harassed. So how do I start this conversation? Because this conversation is a taboo.
Yeah.
And it's from these conversations that even these very predators tell these children, if you speak about it, they will laugh about you. If you tell anyone I slept with you or I touched you a specific way, I will tell them you are the one that wanted it. And that takes me to the next question, or the next thing around how morals have shaped and aided this act. You will tell a girl, dress a specific way. If you don't dress a specific way, you were a whore. You will tell a boy, act a specific way. If you don't act a specific way, you're asking for it. And we fail to speak the actual truth that people that go ahead to defile young children have that problem. It's not the children with that problem. Because I'm looking at a P7 young girl, hardly has any breasts, hardly dresses in any way to impress anyone, especially given the school that they mention. But still, this child has been predated upon, this child has been attacked. So really, it goes back to the question of, like I said, entitlement to your interests, to your benefits, but also how we morally present the topic of sex and the blame game that we actually carry on as we teach this game of morals.
Perfect.
Okay.
As we delve into this conversation, I'm looking forward to you delving deeper into bringing out the issue to do with individual interests that these particular individuals front, vis-a-vis the responsibility, that is how their actions affect the people. But also the question of morality, on how maybe people say girls dress particular way in order to seduce the other sex, and delving deeper into that as well. But also the question of morality, we shall delve deeper into it. But that was a powerful submission.
Okay.
Haruna, my brother, this particular conversation, when you got the topic and at your disposal, what came into your mind? How did you feel? And how should you go about tonight's conversation?
For starters, when you're talking about defilement, these actions of engaging in sexual acts with minors, that is people below the age of 18 years, it's a criminal offense in Uganda. But besides that, you can look at it in two aspects: being a moral wrong and something that is criminal in nature, basically prohibited under our laws. In Uganda, the police, according to the report, I think the 2022 report that was published in February this year, though the numbers have decreased from 14,000 to 12,000, that you'll find that those numbers are still big. And when you talk about defilement of children, where we're having sex with people below the age of 18 years, you're looking at children in primary and even post-primary, up to around senior 6. And so you look at these as children whose minds cannot address themselves to what is right and wrong, cannot make better decisions as far as sex is concerned. And therefore, we are looking at it in such a way that the people who are responsible of taking care of them, people who are supposed to guide them, they're the ones that are taking advantage of these girls. Regardless, in fact, I shouldn't say girls, because you realize it cuts across even to their male counterparts.
Yeah.
Before I came here, I was reading a story. I think it happened in Luero, where a head teacher, one of the head teachers there, engaged in these acts with a student. But also at the end of the story, there's one that has been published there. I think it has been in Daily Monitor. There is a woman also on the run who also did the same to a male child. And therefore, this cuts across, and these are young people, the future of this country, people who are supposed to be guided. And when we talk about defilement in this aspect, we see they are supposed to be guided, but they are being taken advantage of. And in so many circumstances, you'll find that sometimes even parents are involved in this. For a school, you find this parent does not have enough money to pay for the school fees, and therefore this head teacher of this institution, a primary school or even a secondary school, they all sit at the table with this parent. These are things that are real down there in the villages, and they negotiate. The fact that you do not have money to pay for school fees, maybe this one is my future wife, in quotes, but they're engaging in sexual acts with this. Or even when they have not suggested, but even when a parent finds out that this teacher is engaged in a sexual affair with their kid because they do not have money to pay for school fees or even afford the school requirements, they say, oh, at least teacher so and so is taking care of this and they will not mind about. So this is a problem that we're encountering, and it's something that's a challenge to our generation and even the generations to come. We don't know how we are going to raise our children if we are growing up on people who would have guided them, who would have taken care of them, but they are preying on them. Okay. So that's the challenge that we're having.
All right. What I pick from your argument and how you're going to submit in, excuse me, what I pick from your submission and how you're going to go ahead and go about this particular conversation, you highlight the aspect of moral wrong and something that is criminal in nature. But then what cuts across your entire submission is the idea of schools are not being safe anymore, but even homes are no longer safe. So how best can we go about and combat this particular vice that is arising in our society? But we shall get back to that. Precious, as a form of your introduction, you're a student at Uganda Christian University, yes, and you are in your first year, but also we all have siblings who are in lower institutions, yeah, but also we have seen people going through such harassments and maybe defilement among others. So as a form of your introduction as well, what comes into your mind? How did you feel?
Thank you for this opportunity. First year, so many have been in these institutions very soon, if I may say it that way. As I won't mention what schools are in, but there's that happening. For example, in my primary, there's a certain teacher that tried to pick on girls as one of the people, but maybe as aggressive enough not to be used or to be victimized. But I can't guarantee that there are some people that really gave in. Yeah. There must be people that gave in. Still in my secondary school, it was a single school. I'm very sure that people that gave in because there is a certain teacher that came in to me also. And when I decided to raise my voice and try to make things better and make the school comfortable for myself, it was actually not for myself, because me, I knew I would handle all this pressure and everything. But I had a friend of mine who was in a lower class, and she told me this very specific teacher was trying to go in for her. And I had to speak as a big sister that I called myself, and I had to go in and try and maybe help in some way so that this girl feels comfortable in school. And luckily, the head teacher worked on the issue, and we stayed in a calm environment. So I've been there, I've seen what has happened, and really, for this topic, I feel like I can easily speak out and maybe give my ideas and what I've seen. Yeah.
All right. So we shall be looking forward to getting your personal experience and how exactly that informs what must be done. Looking forward to that. Let me get back to you, Praise. In your introduction, you mentioned a couple of arguments: individual needs versus responsibility, or how people's actions affect other people. But let us just now start on the prevalence and the reporting. In your submission, you made mention that sex is a taboo, and people barely want to talk about it. Even in institutions of learning, it is something that we barely talk about. But let us just now delve into the conversation of defilement in schools with keen focus on prevalence and reporting. So the question to you is, how prevalent is the issue to do with defilement in schools? and how best maybe can we solve it? Do we need to have more sexual conversations? Do we need to get people at homes involving their children into sexual talk? Do we need to get teachers involved into these conversations too?
Okay, thank you so much. Well, a lot of girls are defiled out there. A lot of boys are defiled out there. But like I said, the conversation around some of these things is very hard. Very few girls and boys have their stories published in Daily Monitor, talked about on, a TV station, a radio station, because they don't report them in the first place. But they are there. Where I come from in Palisa, for a girl to drop out in P6 and engage like in marriage is something so normal. So by the time this girl leaves P6 to start getting married, it means to her sex is not a new conversation, and she has been engaged within sexual activities along the way, You'll find a girl as young as someone that is 10, 11, she's already sexually active. You'll find a boy as young as 10, already sexually active. So that comes back to the fact that we are hiding ourselves in the guise that sex is a topic our children should not be engaged with. You understand? We think that if we do not address the monster in the room, somehow it will turn into this beautiful puppy and it will be a domesticated animal. But children already are interfacing with sexual content. The movies that children watch are filled with sexual content. The conversations children have at these ages are filled with sexual conversations, So who gives them the right information? If it's not you, the parent, if it's not the institutions that they subscribe to, school, church, or wherever they go. So it's how do we package these conversations as teachers, as parents, and as religious institutions, Like I said earlier, how do we treat a sexual victim before they even become a victim, You're going to tell a girl in church, you're dressed in a skimpy dress. You're going to tell a boy, because your hair is longer than normal, you are muyaye, You're going to make it seem like they themselves are asking for these things. So when they happen to them, even when I was putting on a skirt covering me, I'm going to start asking, what did I do wrong? Is it in how I spoke? Is it in how I moved? Is it in how I replied to this advance? You get. Even in schools, it's not only something that is a select for, religious institutions, Generally, the conversation is there. But like I've said, it is looking at an angle that at the end of the day makes it even harder for the victim to report this. And the predators enjoy this, because they know they can go ahead and, prey on a girl, prey on a boy, and this girl will hardly have a way of reporting this thing, or boy will hardly have a way of reporting it, because they already feel like it was their fault that this thing happened to them at the end of the day. Responsibility. One, I think the primary responsibility starts with parents. And not even school, not even church, parents. Because family is the smallest unit of a child's life, that they interact with people day to day, people that they believe naturally have a say over their actions, In school, you may feel like, this teacher is just paid to do these things, they do not care. In religious institutions, you may feel like they don't know what they're talking about. But when a parent tells you something, you feel like they care about you, or you feel you are you're more inclined to follow what they are telling you. And why I think that family is lagging behind, you see, during COVID-19, the lockdown, the reports of girls and boys that were engaging in sexual acts shot up. It just pointed to the fact that parents have neglected their responsibility of sex education to children, or rather are, like he said, are people that aid some of these actions that school has tried to protect. So parents need to find a way to have hard, bold, firm conversations with their children about issues around sex. How to approach sex, how to approach people that approach them with sex advances, and what to do about it. These conversations should start. But also we should look at school settings. You've realized that sex is going to happen between teachers or administrators and pupils or students, But when you're having this conversation with students, you're still having it in a direction that makes them look like, I said, they are asking for it, We separate the teachers from the students. It takes me back to a conversation that we usually have, when you have like a senior lady and a senior man, and then they separate the girls from the boys, and then they tell you the boys are the bad people, and then they tell you the girls are the bad people, But you're telling these people these conversations separately, but you want them to sort of go back to real life where they mingle and work with each other. So there is need for us to address the victims and the possible victims and the possible predators who are our students in circles that involve both the people, you understand, where they can have stern conversations. Girls say ABCD, boys say ABCD, and students also give their opinion. Someone may say it's sort of hard for students to open up within in a setting where we have teachers, since there's some sort of power dynamic. A teacher is someone that you look at with some sort of fear. But that's also a problem. That's where it starts from. When children cannot speak with teachers as academic guides, but rather as some lords or some, deities, it even affects how will that child report a case of abuse if they're abused at the end of the day. So there is need to have a conversation around power dynamics also as we address this issue. But like I said in conclusion, the conversation should be had. And it's no one else's responsibility more than it is a parent's responsibility. Then it can go down to other institutions like schools and church. But whatever way you choose to package this conversation, it shouldn't be one that makes the victim at the end of the day fail to speak up. Because like we said, these are girls, hardly developed any breasts, but they're being defiled. These are boys being defiled in school uniforms, and we know how decent school uniforms can be. So if someone can still go ahead to approach a girl or a boy and defile them, then definitely it's not a question of the victim, but rather the predator.
All right. Haruna,
Yes.
listen to the submissions of praise. She makes very powerful submissions. She alludes to the fact that there is a societal paradigm that flows in people's minds, that a girl, once you shouldn't wear skimpy dresses. For a boy, if you have dreads, you're a bad person. The question of morality comes in. But then relate it to the conversation in regards to defilement. That a girl who maybe occasionally wears long dresses gets into a situation of defilement will find it hard to report such an issue because she was already wearing something long before. But because society only thinks you get defiled only when you wear short dresses. Now, that alone creates a fear factor onto victims of defilement. But then too, power dynamics, that even in institutions, in these primary schools where our brothers and sisters are, there is fear for the teachers, for these pupils to go ahead and approach these teachers would be somewhat hard and complicated, which then leads me to the question that I'm to ask you in regards to what can be done to encourage pupils to go ahead and report these defilement cases.
I think, like she said, we must look at creating safe spaces for our children, our sisters and brothers, to have, to openly talk about this, either before it happens or even after it has happened. These spaces can be created at home, at religious institutions, and even the education institutions themselves. How comfortable is this child able to speak to their parent or their guardian at home? How comfortable is this boy or child able to talk to the head teacher, the senior woman teacher, or the senior male teacher, or even their religious leader in the community? So we must look at creating a space where they can openly speak out their mind if there's anything that's going to happen, has happened to them, or if they don't know, we should create that space to let them know that such and such a thing should never happen to you, and this is how you can go about it. Let's say, previously in our early years in schools, we used to have the senior female and senior male teachers. They would talk to us. They would even invite other people from outside the school to come and talk to us. You have an open discussion with the children. She talked about sexual education. There have been arguments that children should not be taught on matters to do with sexuality. But I think this is where now we have to come in and have an open discussion about this, because many children are being taken advantage of because they do not know. They do not know. They're just ignorant about everything. So a teacher or a person that is responsible to be guiding them takes advantage of this. They will tell this kid, you know, they will bring all sorts of lies and tell these kids, because they are not exposed, they do not know, and even their parents fear to talk to them. Even in the schools, they've never had such discussions about sexuality and how you can go about if someone makes advances to you. What are you going to do? Everyone keeps fearing to talk about this. That's the problem that we're having. Let's create a space where we can openly talk about this. Let our children know that we exist with such people in society. They're in our families. They could be your uncles. They're in our schools. It could be the director. It could be the head teacher. I think some years ago, there is a very prominent person in this country that died, and the reports that followed, this person was preying on the students. I won't mention the schools.
All right.
This person.
Nyombi, I'm interested on the aspect of, you understand the point she made, that sex is seen as a taboo. Now, how effective or how feasible will it be for us to go ahead and create these spaces, yet we are already experiencing a challenge to do where we have sex being a taboo? So conversations relating to sex can't and shall not be, you cannot engage children on those conversations. And how shall we create these safe spaces to encourage our pupils or students to engage?
Drake, we must face the reality that's before us. It's a taboo, and that's now culturally. That under our culture, we do not have to talk about sex openly. But now this is the problem that has come to us in our society. We are having it everywhere. And so we cannot keep our heads in the sands. We cannot hide our heads in the sands. Yet it's before us. So we must find a solution. And the only thing is now to come out and say, okay, this is now, this is what has faced us right now. How do we address it? Let's talk to the children openly and make them understand what it's all about. A lot of literature, I know we have to guide them. We must be careful, of course, because now you cannot talk about talk about sexuality to a young child of maybe 3 years, but put it into perspective. Right now, the education system that we are having, previously, children would leave their homes maybe at 7 or 8, go to school, and by 4 they are back. But children wake up very early in the morning to go to school, maybe at 6 o'clock, or even their parents wake up at 5 o'clock. They take these kids to school. They spend the entire day at school, and they come back at 6 or even at 7. So the space that they're having there, the parents are unable to talk to their children to have enough time with these children. So how do we try to find that? Now this is the challenge that we're having together as a community, as parents, and as a school, to address this challenge. How do we talk to our children to make them know? But also in the policies, because you would expect people in society, a teacher or head teacher or a school director, or even an uncle, this is a person that is supposed to be guiding. Let's strengthen our policies, that if someone attempts to do such a thing, let's say defilement, this is a teacher who is supposed to guide a student and want to do, and they are making sexual advances to the children. Our our code of conduct in schools, I think the Ministry of Education should try to harmonize and should try to put up policies that are going to make people who are accountable. These people who engage in these sexual acts with the young people in schools, at least if it's done so that to reduce it, our ethical code of conduct should be revised in the policies the regulations of our schools.
All right, thank you. Your submission, when you talk about ways to encourage students to report, you emphasize the issue relating to creating safe space. And when I fronted a question as regards to sex being a taboo, which was raised by Praise, you articulate that, you see, we are already faced with a challenge, and the problem that we're faced with, we ought to take it on. And I think it's imperative for us to note that in this day and age where Praise noted that we have children who access information via YouTube, via Netflix, or whichever platform. People access these things and young people are sexually active. But also, we need to have them, freely talk about these things, which then leads me to the question that I'm to ask Precious. In your introduction, you made mention that you have had experiences before. And my question to you is going to be in line of preventive measures. What can schools do? What can schools do to implement and protect students from actions of predators to, defile their own students? What preventive measures can the schools adopt and implement?
My first point will be the administration should have that one person that is approachable. Like, I'll talk from experience.
Yeah.
We had our headmistresses back then, where I was. The two of them were both not approachable. Like, whom do I run to? I have this issue at hand. I don't have who to run to. So, for a person to make a step and go in to speak, it is already hard. And then this other one, specific one, would go to her, and very many people had talked about that same man, gone to him various times, gone to her, to the headmistress various times to speak about it, like to give their issue. We are having an issue with this man. We need help. But she said, you're the people that give yourselves to him. That is what her argument was. She said, I trust my teachers. They can't do such a thing. So now that would make us even more vulnerable. Like, where do we stand to come and ask for help? And that was our deputy headmistress. And now for the actual headmistress, she was rarely in school. And for you to get to her to speak out your points, it would take like a lot of courage for you to now go to her. So the only person we had was a deputy headmistress, and of which she was showing us that you're not giving yourselves to him. You put on seductively, you do certain things that are going to attract him. So my first point will be, let there be an approachable administrator that we are going to come to for help. Because if a person is there that we can speak to easily and they listen to us and they go into investigations, that will be easier for us because those people will be picked out of the community and thrown out maybe. Actually, I think that is the main point for schools to do away with these people. Just encourage the students to report. But if they're to report, let there be an approachable person who is not going to be judgmental, who is going to give us a listening ear.
Perfect. I think schools need to implement that. And it still runs back to the argument raises to do with sex being a taboo, issues relating to morality. You see the argument that that particular teacher raises, that you wear short dresses, you're the ones who give in to him.
Yeah.
Now, those are arguments not raised by one head teacher or two. Those are arguments that are actually raised by very, very many teachers, which I think it's wrong. In the 21st century, where we advocate for people to freely speak up their minds, for people to engage and let people know their problems, issues to do with mental health, I think it's very, very important. Which then leads me to the question to raise mental health. These pupils, these children are young people, not 18. People who are 12, that I've seen a case, someone was 7 years.
Yeah.
That's something very traumatizing. See, you be in a situation or you be in a space with someone who, unfortunately, they have been raped by their teachers and they couldn't speak, and they live with this trauma all their lives. You find someone is afraid of men because of an incident they had, and they had an experience with, maybe when they were in their primary school or even from home. So, Praise, speak to the issue of the mental health challenges such victims are facing and what can be done to help them out.
Okay. So when we look at the issue of defilement, for example, or any form of sexual harassment for a young mind, when you are young, let's say, for example, as a Ugandan student, you have already had very little around sex conversations because we have already established that it's sort of a taboo within this setting, And then someone has forcefully pushed you into that sexual, I want to call it sexual maturity. It could be simple touching of your thigh. It could be actual penetration, sex, So you've been forced into that world. Now, why this is the worst form of mental health, depression, is because you're not even going to blame someone else. You're going to blame yourself because of how society has painted it. So there is depression or mental health trauma that can come from, my father did this, my mother did this to me, At least you have a person or you have something to blame for what has happened to you. But when you're in a situation where the person that you blame at the end of the day is yourself, it becomes harder for you to recover from that point of trauma or that point of depression. It's easier for someone to convince you when it's someone else, They'll tell you, no, that's how Drake is. He's judgmental. No, that's how Drake is. He's hard to approach. But you're not going to try to unconvince me of society that has continuously told me, if this thing ever happened to me, it's my fault. Mm-hmm. Takes us back to where we started from. How do we carry these conversations? How we package these conversations can help a victim easily heal or not heal out of this situation. But now, speaking to the victims, if they are listening to this, or if they ever get a chance to listen to this, whether it was your mistake, which I don't think it was, or someone else's mistake, in life, you have to learn that it's only you who has power over how you choose to feel, And that's how what they call it. That's how mental health helps. You make a decisive choice that I want to get out of this stage or this step and move on from that mistake, or from that scenario that happened in my life. But before you make that conscious decision to leave that step, however much they'll call counselors to talk to you, and you have not made that decision, you're not going to be helped as much. When this counselor moves away, you will get back to that point. So it starts with self. It's not an easy journey. It takes time. But like anything else, it takes consistency, today. Surround yourself with people that remind you that you're valued and you are not a summary of your past incidences, You're human, you're allowed to grow, you're allowed to evolve, you can move past it. But also as institutions now, when self is away, institutions like family, institutions like schools and churches, are there spaces that these people as victims can go to and, speak their mind, speak their experience, individual experience without being judged, People that can remind them they matter in society. So we are speaking post-act, the act has already happened. So how do we help these people, I have had experiences with senior ladies that are not really beautiful, I have come to realize that when they're picking a senior lady, this is what they will look for. The most decent lady, the most strict lady teacher in the school, the toughest lady teacher in school.
Isn't that a stereotype?
No. Okay, if it's a stereotype, then it has happened for so long that it now
has become
the figures. Yes, it's a norm. It's like that's what they look for. So when they parade female teachers in a school and they're like pick out the senior lady, it's quite easy most times. If I mean like it's this teacher. So this is the figure you're putting there to counsel a girl, This is a lady, in her talk, she has always been going like, you see, some of you girls, the way you dress, some of you girls, the things you do, are the ones that attract these boys. So at the end of the day, how am I going to approach this female figure, who is already portraying herself as a paragon of virtues, So I think also the metric there has to change in how we create the safe
Yeah.
spaces, you know?
So it goes back to our argument
goes-
that
yeah.
we need to get someone approachable.
Yes.
Very approachable, you know, at the end of the day. There is something my school used to do, which I think is very beautiful and brilliant. It invested in having a school counselor. I know it can be expensive and not every school can afford it. But I think the cost of having students with poor mental health is more than the cost it would take to pay a counselor to be in school.
Yeah, and I think on that point of having counselors, post-COVID-19, we're already having students, many students dropped out on grounds of unplanned pregnancies and their failure to go back to school. But also we have students who are in school now who have they have been sexually abused during that period, but they're in school and they have no one to speak to. And remember, statistics have it that approximately 14 million Ugandans are facing mental health challenges, which I think actually the number still skyrockets high. Even when we get into the other half of the show, we're talking about sex for marks, we shall speak from the perspective of university students. But I think investing in counselors is a brilliant idea. Proceed.
Yes. Like I was saying, the cost is more in a world where we do not invest in counselors, you know? Because as a school, I'm looking at, let's say, private entities to begin with. As a private entity, you're looking at how will the students perform at the end of the day and what will their results look like? Because that's your selling point, you know, in the kind of system in which we exist. This investment in a counselor will mean your students have a better mental health, they can concentrate better in class, therefore they can deliver better. And when you have a counselor in class, they're not only going to deal with students with sexual harassment issues, but they're going to deal with students that have issues, relationships just among peer relationships, friends, you know, teachers, or whatever it could be. But also, this counselor is trained in how to deal with mental health issues. Being a teacher doesn't necessarily mean you're going to be the best counselor there is, you know, or because you've depicted a certain moral level that, you know, the school feels is so beautiful and they've given you this post-senior man, senior lady, doesn't mean you know the technicalities of dealing with students with mental health issues. So really, a counselor becomes a good investment. Now, when you leave a private entity and you speak on, let's say, government schools, because they'll say, we don't have money, we can't afford that. But it's still really the same thing. The well-being of someone, you know. Before someone delivers, their state of mind has to be at the best that it can be at. So it's a worthy investment. So really, we need counselors in place, not teachers in the guise of counselors.
All right. Nyombi, you are a student of law, and in your introduction, you made mention that you look at the moral issue and the criminal nature. You are aware that we have the penal code which criminalizes offenses relating to defilement, to rape, among others. Now, we have all these laws in place. Now, how best can we have the institution of justice deliver justice to the victims of such offenses, but also to the perpetrators, because justice ought to be served. Other times, someone can be under the influence of alcohol, or even there are very many reasons that maybe make someone, you know, carry out those certain advances. So how best can we have justice delivered? How best can we implement the law?
Drake, before I answer that question, I want to add my voice on what she was talking about mental health.
Please do.
A few weeks ago, at our university, we held the mental health symposium, and our theme was about how we can influence policy formulation in terms of inculcating mental health education in the school curriculum. In this way, it may not necessarily require that we employ maybe psychiatrists or even mental health practitioners as such, but if we inculcate this in our curriculum, at least we shall have the basic knowledge that everyone that requires. Let's say in the teacher training schools, the teachers that you're putting out to go there and teach our children, the students, at least they have that basic knowledge of mental health. In such a way, they are going to address some of these issues. They will be able to talk to these students, not as much as a professional would do, but at least that basic thing that someone would require to approach some of these challenges.
I think on that, Her university has something similar to that. There is a course they offer to students, and we have para-counselors who are students who go through that course during I think their first semester.
Yeah.
And then you have students who are para-counselors who do not give you professional help, but you have someone to
Yes.
listen
You can
to.
run too fast.
Yes.
More first aid in mental health.
Yeah.
So, and this one can cut
True.
across, like, because now these teachers are the ones that are living with these children. And therefore, if even the perpetrators are within the community, the institution itself, if the other teacher X, has that kind of the basic training, they will look at this child and identify them. Oh, there could be a problem here. They talk to them, and these children will be able to disclose, to open up themselves, at least talk to this teacher about what teacher X does. But if that's not in place, then the space will be totally closed. The same even in our homes, even in the communities. Now, back to your question about the justice issue in our communities. I believe we have to strengthen the policies. Like you said, under our penal code, that's section 129 of the Penal Code Act, that brings about this offense for defilement. And also the penalty is life imprisonment, and if it's now aggravated, someone is liable to death. But you will find that our justice system is in place in such a way that right from the police station up the courts of law, there are a lot of challenges that we have in these institutions. One, corruption. The perpetrators are rich. If you're talking about a school director in a rural school, and now is engaged in these sexual relations with this child, of a poor parent who cannot afford to pay some little thing to ensure that this case is being followed up and goes up to the, it's dispensed off at the court, then these cases are going to die from within.
Yeah.
So they're not going to be to go very far. Even at the court system, you'll find that we are having the judiciary in the courts of law. We have a few judicial officers to handle so many cases, and therefore it will take a lot of time to dispense of all these cases, and therefore there should be a lot of funding to ensure that now investigations are carried out expediently, quickly.
Expedited.
They are expedited to ensure that if something has happened, this investigation, remember now these defilement cases, the evidence in terms of collecting evidence, all these things, the investigation, they should be done at least in the appropriate time. But if a case takes about 2 years or 3 years, then you stand a chance of losing out this case. Remember, the evidence, you must be beyond reasonable doubt. But now, if there are such impediments in the legal system, so you might find that many of these cases, either they are not reported because people do not have money to offer to the people who are supposed to investigate, or even the corruption cases in the judiciary, such things, and even the system itself, in such a way that only those that have money can go ahead and at least ensure that these cases are expedited. So that's one of the challenges that we are facing. And I think it goes back to the authorities. Our authorities, those in power, those who influence the policies in this country, they increase the funding, let's say at the police station, that investigations are carried on and effectively to ensure that now these cases are handled in a special way that they are. In fact, they should be even special this for defilement cases. I know they are there, the child and protection units, the police stations, but you realize they are not functioning as they are expected.
All right. Let me get to you, Precious. Then maybe we can go for a short break. I want us to link this. Your argument of getting someone approachable tickles my mind to then ask you a question of how can we create, how can parents and teachers work together to create a safer environment for the students in schools?
Personally, I have a very close relationship with my mother. She talks a lot about the world. She tells me so much about what I am about to face, what I am facing right now. And most of the times when I get challenges, it is very easy to tell her what the problem is. So first of all, parents, at least if you know your husband, let's talk to the ladies, if you know your husband is not that approachable, at least be the approachable one. Have a close relationship with this child. Put her in a situation of she will know she's vulnerable when it comes to you. When she gets into an issue, she finds it very comfortable to talk to you. Because my parents, my father is a very tough one, but my mother is a very easy one. I can go to her in case of anything. And then also my father, even to the tough parents, even if you're which level of being tough, at least have that relationship with your child such that they are able to come to you and tell you what the issue is, what is happening in your life. Then for teachers back at school, let there be that respect. At least have this respect of, I'm a teacher.
Yeah, exactly.
What will it look like if I go in and to this child, she is young. How is this child going to look at me from there? Like, will I still have my dignity? Will I still have my... And then maybe if we could... one of the speakers has talked about the parents being part of this harassment also. Like saying, sure, that the teacher will handle it. Know that these are your responsibilities. These are your obligations to provide for your child. If you depend on the teacher, if you depend on a relative, you will not know what will happen behind there. And then these children are threatened. As in school, there is a specific girl that also refused to give in to this man. And you know, every time there'll be night prep and maybe he's passing around, even if the girl has not done anything, they'll pull her out and beat her.
Yes.
So that is what this thing is like. Let us have that dignity of maybe this child, this girl is going to speak out to the fellow students and they'll not look at me with a dignity anymore. And then the parents create the safe space. Like, this is your child. Put her in this position of when she is down, even if it is just a small issue, you can easily talk to the parent. For example, me, if I get any issue here at campus, I get some slight issue, you find me talking to mommy, I have this issue, I have this problem. How can I go about it? And also when she feels like she is not in the perfect space to talk about it, she'll refer me to someone, or she'll talk to someone, please talk to my daughter about this issue.
But
And
Precious,
it's...
on that point, how about people who do not have a close relationship with both parents? Because we have people who do not have a close relationship with their dad, do not have a close relationship with their mom. I think the only people they freely talk to are maybe peers. What about them?
What about them? Yes, you can have someone whom you know is more audible than you are. Like, they can be your voice. At school, I don't want to put myself high, but I feel like I'm a voice of certain people. Because you're this person whom people will come to and be like, Precious, I have this issue happening. I have this happening in my life. How can I go about it? Will you please help me? At least if you are a person, for you to be a normal person who is moving on earth, have that person you trust. That is the advice I would give to the people. Have that person you know is not going to be judgmental. That person you know is not going to give you the wrong advice or something. Have that one person that... yeah, you may have a lot of bad friends or whatsoever, but have that person you know you can go to and tell him, there is this man putting a lot of pressure on my head, doing all these kinds of things. What should I do? like I've told you, me speaking out to our headmistress back in secondary, it was because a certain friend of mine had talked to me. Because me, I felt I can handle all this pressure. I can push it away. I can rebut the pressure and maybe threaten the guy. But this girl was weak.
Okay.
But she had someone she could talk to.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right, perfect. Let's just maybe in just a minute or so, everyone, as we wind up on this part of the show talking about defilement in schools for our brothers, because we are their voices and we need to speak up for them, because if we don't, no one else will. Maybe just quickly, I'll just final thoughts on this particular topic, because the other half of the show, we're going to be focusing on sex for marks in institutions of higher learning. So I'll begin from my brother, Nyombi. What is your final say on this issue of defilement in schools?
Thank you so much. I think we have all agreed here that there must be space to talk about this before it happens, and even that space to talk about it when it has unfortunately happened. If that's not there, then it will be entrenched forever and forever. Because if you can talk about it within your family, amongst the students' community, so students will be equipped, will be empowered to prevent this if it comes their way. If someone approaches them asking for extraordinary things, they will be able to fight it and say, oh, please, no, I'm not interested in this. And if someone insists, they will be able to talk to another person, to disclose, to find solace in another person. So we should create space for these children to disclose, to open up to either their colleagues, their family members, or even the institutions, the teachers in that institution that they are in, to be able to talk about everything in the school, especially in that category.
Yeah. All right. Precious, final thoughts on the issue of defilement in schools?
My thought is that we should have those people that are approachable enough on the administration committee. Like we have administrators who are going to be approachable enough. They have ears for every student. So that once an issue comes up, they immediately go into it. And then about the issue of counselors. Counselors can be implemented in schools, different schools, maybe one or two or something, but there should be people that these children are going to run to talk. And then not forgetting, I think we've forgotten about this part of some of these girls go there themselves.
Yeah.
True, that's true.
We've left out that part.
Talk about it.
We've lost out that part. Now, as in a single school, where we spend the whole, actually like the 3
3 to
months.
4 months.
No, let's talk about just a
term.
term. Without seeing anything like a male of our age. And what do we have here?
The teacher.
The teachers.
For you.
And these are teachers that are going to come and are very good looking. The teachers, the administrators themselves know that this person is going to be maybe a bait in the school, but they still put him there. They'll even bring a man who is not married, but he's good looking in a single school. As overview that maybe when we are going to put people in single schools, that male teachers in single schools, maybe they should put that. They should be married. Yes, because at least
So what got choose is ugly.
no, not the ugly part. Now I'm talking about the marriage part. Like this, at least a married man will be able to handle this and then go away to now the wife. You get? But now, I know it is complicated, but it is on a safer. It's on a safer side.
I think the school should revise the policies to say that these children are well protected, and that's one of the solutions.
I am of the view. I think when it comes down to teachers being placed in single schools, whether married or not.
Hmm.
It doesn't matter. It
Sure.
all calls down to, first of all, schools have values and in principles they write
Yeah.
on.
Yeah.
So before they go ahead and bring in teachers on board,
Mm.
first of all, the values of that teacher should be in tandem with the values of the school.
What are the
So
do's and the don'ts?
now this is a single school. So you know that you're going to come into a single school and girls are at that prime of adolescence. So if girls are at that prime of adolescence, definitely are going to be advances. But also, as a man, you should know that these are your
Children.
possible sisters.
These are
Actually, not
children.
possible, they're your sisters.
Children.
And you should
Children,
treat them in a manner. Some teachers are actually 22, 23. And yeah, and you should teach them, you should treat them in a way that, you know, your sisters.
Yeah.
But fair enough, a good submission. Let's just listen to praise quickly on this matter. We go for a short break and then come back.
Okay, thank you so much, Drake. What I can finally say is, in whatever we try to do in this struggle, empower the victim or could be victim and do as much as possible to disarm or disempower the could be predator, you know? The means could change, you know? You could empower these girls or boys by talking to them, you know? You could empower these girls and boys by doing what he suggested, giving them basic mental health, you know, tutorials, creating peer buddies. That's what we call it at my university. Creating such people that they can talk to. You could do it by putting counselors there, but whatever you do, empower them before the act and even after the act, if it ever happened. And on the other hand, disempower the predator or could be predator in whatever way possible. How do you package the conversation around defilement? How do you package the conversation around sex education? How do you empower a girl so that she can afford pads and not sleep with a fellow teacher, or not a fellow teacher, sleep with a teacher or an administrator to get the pads at the end of the day? How do you empower this girl that even when a teacher is as handsomely striking as Drake Onen, they won't be attracted? How do you tell her to do something? So that's my ending statement. Empower the victim or could be victim as much as possible and disempower the predator.
All right, on air, you had one of the panelists saying I'm handsome. I don't know about that. But thank you. Anyway, so let's just quickly go for a short break. We'll come back from that and talk about sex for marks. Otherwise, it's been a wonderful discussion. See you in a bit.
Digital rights are those human rights and legal rights that allow individuals to access, use, create and publish digital media or to access and use computers, other electronic devices and telecommunication networks. Digital rights include a right to freedom of expression, information and communication through technology, a right to privacy and data protection, a right to credit for personal works, a right to universal and equal digital access, a right to identity, a right to anonymity, a right to be forgotten, and a right for protection of minors, among others. The state's digital rights are frequently violated through various unfair actions, for example, blockage of websites and social networks, theft of credentials, unauthorized use of people's data for personal gain, privacy intrusion, online censorship, arrests and intimidation of online users, internet blockages, and the proliferation of laws and regulations that undermine the potential of technology to drive social, economic, and political development worldwide. It is hence every citizen's responsibility to respect rights of other digital users and to speak out or report to the responsible parties when one's rights are violated.
Welcome back from that short break. Right at the end of the conversation, in the first half of the show, we are talking about defilement in schools. And right now, I just want us to shift gears and take it to sex for marks in universities. That's a very serious issue that I think is sparking debate even to date. And we cannot talk about defilement in schools and fail to talk about sexual harassment in institutions of higher learning. For the viewers out there who do not know sexual harassment happens in a scenario whereby I have a person in a high authority making sexual advances on someone in a lower in a lower stature or whatever form they are in. So let's just begin this conversation. Praise, set for us space. I want us to make this conversation as casual and as simple as possible. We're university students, and we have friends who are victims. We have friends who are offering themselves to lecturers, who are offering themselves to tutors for marks, but also lecturers who are, on the other hand, saying, for you to get those marks, you have to give me some. And it's becoming a predatory relationship, rather a student and teacher relationship, which in my view, it's wrong. So, Praise, to what extent is that problem?
The extent is going to be a little bit hard here to, put figures to.
Yeah.
I tried to make some research around it, and it was a little hard to actually find figures around it. But later I discovered actually why. You see, when we use the politics of words and go sexual harassment, the politics of word, yes, there is sexual harassment because, as you defined it, someone in a higher position of power, sexually, predating or doing whatever with someone of a lower point of power. But unlike secondary school or primary, the dynamics change a bit at the university. You're going to find very few girls or boys being raped. I think at this level it's no longer defilement.
Yeah.
Or being sexually harassed. Now let's look at it. Harass, the actual harass, not the politics of the words of it or the legal definition of what it is. Most of the cases are willing, let's call them victims still for this discussion. I realized I could possibly have a retake in this paper, and I weigh, what do I gain, what do I lose? Okay, a little decency issue, but how many people get to know if I never talk about it? Definitely the lecturer is most likely not going to talk about it. So I'll give him the sex, and in return, get that mark and not get the retake, I'm a finalist, I want to graduate. For some reasons, my name is not appearing on the, graduation list. If I slept with someone, or if I let someone do something sexual to me, would my name get there at the end of the day? So I think because of that, the figures around sexual harassment in university setting are a little hard to come across, And you see, because we look at sexual harassment at university level in a political way, politically correct way, for you to say, oh, the student is a victim, and most definitely the administrator is a perpetrator. Disclaimer, I'm not saying there are no people there who are, raped or sexually harassed. But I think for this discussion to yield better, we need to look at, first of all, the general thing, and then look at the exceptions later. So, like I was saying, on how this affects policy around university, you're going to get a lecturer, you're going to employ the lecturer and tell that lecturer, here we do not encourage relationships between lecturers and students. For Makerere, we have policy, that says if this relationship is consensual, you have to report it to the human resource, for example. If it's not, we try to protect the girl child or the boy child and say you can report it to this office. We have a gender mainstreaming office. We have a lot of those offices. But why we still have figures that are not reported is because the people we think are victims, or the people we think we are protecting, actually want to be there in the first place. To them, that is a lesser sacrifice than the marks that they hope to lose if they don't do what they're supposed to do. So I think that then will bring us to the question of what better ways can we now address the elephant in the room after learning what it really is, Someone may say, oh, let's put cameras in offices such that a lecturer cannot touch a student or tell a student, but you really think, okay, the highest unreported number, you really think a lecturer who knows that there's a camera in his office will harass that girl from the office? No. There are other ways he would do it, He will use systems like, is there a way I can fail as this girl without directly telling her, I want to touch you in the office and touch her? So how better can we make those systems to protect this girl, that even when she says no to a lecturer who wants to take her to an expensive restaurant, she will not be affected, or he will not be affected? But also, how do we place students in a place where they don't feel that offering their bodies is always a cheaper price?
All right, shall get to that. Haruna, sex for marks. We all are students in universities. What's your say?
This is an elephant in the room. Sex for marks, sexual harassment. It's really hard to make a distinction there. But like I said, we can first of all generalize it as sexual harassment. Where we realize that some of these lecturers, so they will be maybe in the lecture room, there's this particular student they are interested in, and like, oh, how do I get this person? And they will do whatever it takes to put this girl to the corner so that they get what they want. You get that? So you find girl, should I say only girls? Because even boys are harassed in one way or the other. They are. Let's call them the students. The students are in a position that they are put in a position that they have to reach out to this particular lecturer, and of course you have to agree on something to get what you want. But why do we have all this? You realize that many times those who are falling victims, like I said, to some extent, there will be some kind of consensual relationship. Some of them, many of them, I should say, you realize that's what they would be opting for. Their minds are already prepared for that. For a student who does not attend classes, a student that does not read, in other words, one who does not believe in their capabilities, it will be very easy for them to fall for that. But if a student they believe in themselves and their capabilities, and so this is the subject that I'm taking, I can study, read, and pass it. I do not need to approach the lecturer to give these marks. To a great extent, many of them will not fall into that kind of trap. But also the systems in our institutions of learning, some of them you realize would be supporting such of this in one way or the other, that this student-teacher relationship, to what extent do we have this interaction between the student and the teacher? If it's the student that is, if it's the lecturer that is administering the courseworks, the same lecturer that is teaching the students, it's the same lecturer that is marking the exams, you realize that's a problem. The problem is there. So our system should be in such a way that we decrease on the level of interaction of this particular lecturer with the students. If a lecturer is there to teach, then you should have others that are going to conduct the tutorials. There should be the others that are going to maybe administer the coursework, so even the examinations, and even at the marking centers. If you're having all this only one person that's doing all these things, then it's at the disadvantage of the student. Because in one way or the other, they will find a way of getting to them. But if I'm very sure that I'm attending these classes, even if I got a problem with this particular lecturer, I know he's not the one that's going to mark my paper. Or they would not know that I'm the one that has sat for this particular paper that they are marking. So I think institutions of higher learning should employ different measures on how to curb this vice. The interaction, the marking system should also be looked into. How do you mark these exams? I don't know whether it's in the other universities, but we are not allowed to use our names. Our names are on the examinations, so that a lecturer may not know who the student is. That's one of them. The other, at the Islamic University here at our campus, the interaction between the lecturer and the students is such that while you're at the university, it should be basically on academic purposes, and they try as much as they can that it's done in open space. And if there is anything to do with maybe contacts, like she said, these relationships will come in voluntarily. That should be outside. That should be a student and lecturer arrangement. But within, even when the lecturer wants to talk to you as a student, they should be going through the coordinators, the class coordinators, to reduce on the chances of having this lecturer being in touch with the students. Even there's what we call the common room. If a student is supposed to look out for a lecturer, that should be the last resort. You go through the procedures, the class coordinators on matters. If you want to consult, of course, it should be in open space. We have now WhatsApp groups where we're having now these lecturers. If there is anything like you want to ask, go to that group in open, in classes. But now the problem you realize, these students, like I said earlier on, both the girls and the boys, those who do not want to study, they want to take advantage of that because I'm beautiful. So there's what we call, is it thigh power? I've always heard about it. Yeah. So I'll just front my thigh power to get what I want, though I cannot afford it. You realize in other universities, you realize these students are from not well-to-do families. And when they get here, a student cannot afford to print out the courseworks, to buy the reading material, and in one way or the other, it affects them. And now there's this lecturer who would realize, oh, this child is not doing well, and so they want to take advantage of that.
All right.
Yeah.
Precious, how can universities improve the support system for the affected students from just his submission?
There is this policy of encouraging lecturers to have work contacts, like working contacts, working emails, specifically for work.
Yeah.
So that and then these contacts, these emails should be in reach of the administration so that they can check.
Yeah.
That is one. But now the problem is that these students, most of them are not harassed. Most of them are willing to do it. So now the issue would be, how are the lecturers going to avoid being grilled into?
Yeah.
For the lecturers, I think these are intellectual people. Obviously, if you want to be a lecturer, they have to be influential and all that.
Yeah, that.
So if anyway, we'll keep saying we are weak, we are human. You may look at this person and your minds go for something, but I'll still keep my point of know your position. Lecturers should know their position such that they are not, this is a young girl that is going to snap your mind, like, and make you do what she wants so that she gets this mark. Be I don't know which word to use, but be this person that is going to reach in class, and what has brought you is to teach.
Stick to that and
Stick to that and move on. And then on the point Haruna said, this point of the lecturer, no, when we are doing exams, we don't put our names. Like at my university, we use registration numbers, access numbers, in that when a person is marking, unless maybe they've written down your mark, your access number or registration number, and then they favor you when it reaches that side. The only time we have that we can easily be captured by these lecturers, maybe coursework, why sometimes you find you're putting our names or something, but that some of our lecturers at my university that will tell you, don't put your names, put your registration number. And they will mark, not knowing this is this one's paper, this is this one's paper, they will mark the paper as it is. With no favors, with you like you're not favoring anyone, you're not. Yeah. That is the.
Okay. Praise. The issue at the moment now is going to be on grounds of academic integrity and ethics.
Yes.
Universities employ lecturers and employ tutors, so they have an employer-employee relationship with them. So any action that they do is implied that the universities are vicariously liable.
Right.
Yes.
So on those grounds, on that relationship, definitely when a lecturer engages in certain sexual harassment incidents, definitely the integrity of the school is questioned, the academic integrity of the institution is questioned. So my question to you is, what measures can universities take to promote academic integrity and ethical conduct among both faculty and students?
Okay, thank you. This is an interesting topic for me, Sexual harassment. We are agreeing to call it that. Okay, now I'm going to speak one when it's really harassment, then I'll go on the other side of it. Now, when it's really sexual harassment, university can take the bare minimum measures, What is the nature of your offices, Our offices still in that old-fashioned way where you enter the room, there's a window towards like some backyard, and then the door is closed and it's all wooden and you're in there with the lecturer, you get? I'm not saying go break down your university buildings to construct new structures, but how are you making the interaction between student and administrator more open, more public, The colleagues I have here today have suggested various mechanisms, which some are being implemented, like, for example, registration numbers, though some lecturers can work around that and, like, for example, you're writing your name as you register on that sheet. There's definitely going to be your name. There's definitely going to be your student number or whatever it is, So a lecturer who is really interested in failing you can fail you. You get it? But when you look at what Haruna says, we give a lot of power to an individual. And lecturers are like given all that power. That even when a student loses, let's say just marks, they have to beg this lecturer. Even when they know they sat for this paper, there's a lot of power vested in one human being, So how do we break down that power? He suggested, let's create a system where a lecturer interacts with a student in class, but this same lecturer doesn't have the power to mark these papers and maybe upload these marks at some point, Because I could mark and this girl or boy has failed and I choose to put better marks when I'm uploading them because I know their student number or I know their access number. So can we create a system where a lecturer doesn't get to interact and mark the students' papers? Now, I don't know how it works in other universities, but someone may raise an argument and say, oh, but a university teacher, as a lecturer, you need to interact with a student to help them get better. But that is sort of wrong because I don't think at university level we interact so much with our teachers or need that guidance that we did in secondary and in primary. No. Yeah. You can exist through the university without ever speaking to your lecturer.
Sure.
You can exist through the university without having that academic mentoring or mentorship that we had in lower classes. So really, there is no need for a lecturer to mark your paper and maybe try to say, oh, how is praise performing? And even though you wanted to have academic mentorship, it's as easy as going and saying, oh, lecturer, so-and-so, this is how I performed, and how can you guide me, That aside, like I said, reduce the amount of power that you place in the hands of this one individual, the lecturer. And Haruna gave us something that I feel to me is very viable, But also now, let's come and look at it outside the actual sexual harassment. As we have all accepted that there are girls at the end of the day or boys at the end of the day who are going to put themselves out there like, hey, here I am, use me, give me the marks. And lecturers of these days are not 80, 70-year-old people. They are young, handsome, and beautiful men and women, who themselves are also at the prime of their sexual activeness, not adolescents, though. I have a friend of mine who has been pursued by a particular lecturer, he's not going to use any form of force whatsoever. He will actually seduce you, till you want to be there. Someone calls you for a simple conversation, makes you a friend, and gives you $100 to go have lunch. $100. A girl that has been feeding on 2K chips in Chikoni. You know what that is? That is a gold mine, you know, and then he's going to invite you to a hotel. He's not even going to suggest sex, you know, and then he's going to say, okay, have this 500 USD transport back home.
Implied, definitely something is
Yeah,
up.
you see, he's not going to, you know, till you find yourself in a place, you know, we're talking of adults. It's not, the dynamics have shifted. It's no longer secondary or primary school, you know. These are two adults in another world who could be together, you know. So still, this takes us back. The university is the one to reduce the power that the lecturer has. Because if I am dating so-and-so as a student, if I have the power to pass them, I'm going to pass them at the end of the day. I won't fail them. I'll give them good marks. But this affects the integrity of the university. Because if you realize, oh, marks in Makerere University, for example, hypothetically, are given to students because they sleep with lecturers, then you know the integrity of the university is affected. So whatever cost they can go to reduce the power vested in this lecturer does them better, because they've already established that most of these are consensual sexual relationships. And as virtue of being human beings, if I'm sleeping with you, if I'm relating with you in some way, I'm biased to want the best for you. I'll give you good marks. If you've given me, you know, thigh for the marks, I'm definitely going to give you good marks, because I know if I give you the good marks and I say, oh, so thigh power worked for me, I want it to work the next time, you come to me again and give me some more thigh. So it's basically about the power dynamics and how do we reduce them.
All right, thank you. So our time is fast spent, but just quickly as we wind up this conversation, let us give recommendations to universities, how best they can go ahead and maybe try to reduce on the issues to do with sex for marks, because it tarnishes the academic integrity of schools. It tarnishes the reputation that these individual lecturers have. But also at the end of the day, it affects or it creates a mindset among students that, hey, if I fail this paper, I'll just go and show my thighs and I'll get worked upon. So I'll start with you, Nyombi. Recommendations.
Like I said earlier on, in terms of quality assurance, there should be those mechanisms that are geared towards saying that we do not have the things happen that people are getting sexually transmitted marks. You get that? Yeah. Like what I advised earlier on. Those mechanisms should be employed. For instance, many of the questions that I do take, you'll find you have about 3 or 4 lecturers per one course unit. And so it may be hard for you to know this is the person that's going to mark with this paper, this is the person that's going to set these exams. Bear in mind we have about 4 campuses, and so you never know who is going to mark from any of those campuses. I think those mechanisms should be employed. But also the ethical values, the universities should uphold their values in such a way that they put in place the do's and the don'ts. To be followed by the lecturers as well as the students. So this is where you must go, and beyond this, it's a no-go zone for us. As far as the interactions with the students, this is where you're supposed to stop. She suggested, and if in terms of communication, what kind of communication are you using with the students? It should not be personal communication, should be public kind of communication. If you want to address anything, I don't think there's anything you want to address to the student and you have always to go through praise or patience as an individual. You can make that communication through the coordinators or even the entire class. If there is anything that maybe from a student to the lecturer, there should be an official communication. She talked about the emails that can be opened by even the administrators and to go through that. I think in one way or the other, when we try to administer the things, we are going to reduce on these vices. But also our fellow students, please read. Because the biggest challenge here is people do not want to read, they don't want to work hard. There's nothing more beautiful and interesting that one will take pride in when you get things on merit. And even when you're sleeping in your bed alone, under your bed sheet, you'll be very proud if you worked for those marks. Otherwise, people do not want to read books. They feel like, okay, I'm going to get this from Madam so-and-so, Council so-and-so, even this kind of lecturer. Please, let's have this fair competition. Because you went to school, your parents took you to school to read books, study, and go. Why should you be running over a lecturer to get marks? Make sure you always avail yourself in time in classes, do your coursework in time. By that, you will not need to meet this special lecturer. I tell you, Drake, if you attend classes promptly, you do your assignments in time, you will never find need to reach out to a particular lecturer. Because either way, if you reach out to this person, you never know. This is the person that has been waiting for you all along for you to get to them. So you try to put in place those preventive measures, you as an individual, not to interact with any of the lecturers, because you don't know who they are. They could be waiting for one day I'll get this person here. And so if you fail to put in place those preventive measures for you as a student, you'll fall into that trap.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Precious, recommendations.
When it comes to harassment, the harassment side, the lecturers will get to ask the students if we are not working. I don't know if I'm making sense. If we, okay, even if you've been working, sometimes they'll identify where they can get to you. Maybe you're this outstanding person, you're this outstanding girl or boy in class, and they can easily get to you. But come to think of it, that we've put all these policies of the registration numbers, the students' numbers, and everything of the sort. But there is this thing of the lecturer never getting to know you. As in, you participate in class, you read your books, you do not fail. Personally, when I reached, there is a certain lecturer that was being too hard on me. And when I talked to a friend of mine, he's like, Precious, be careful. I made sure every time he gives us assignment, I have it. Every time he gives us cases, go read this case, I would be having it on the fingertips, so that I don't give him a reason to call me in private.
Yeah.
I get it.
You get? Like, don't give this lecturer the authority to call you in private. Do your coursework, do your assignments, read the cases, do everything, so that this lecturer is not in a position where he can call you. Can I meet you in private? No. What have I done? I've been doing my assignments, I've been doing my coursework, I've done everything. They won't call you if you've been doing everything that you're supposed to be doing. Then for the offering ourselves part, because there are girls that will really position themselves.
Yeah.
You go to class and this girl is going to put on seductively. This person is going to give, like, yes, we are supposed to participate in class.
Yeah.
But these people
It's like
that
shiny
really
windows.
participate in a way that is,
Giving.
what is happening? You get? So now, when it comes to that part, now the lecturers have to take caution. Like, what am I going to do now? If that is happening, this girl will easily get to me. Maybe I'm weak as a lecturer. This student is going to get to me in some way. What will I put in place? I have this working media. Like, I have an email specifically for work. I have a phone specific, a number, WhatsApp specifically for work. So if you try to get into my private things, why did you get my number? What is your plan? What are you trying to do? That is the way that the lecturers are going to fight the students who are trying to position themselves and put themselves in this space of I'm there. So they can put the specific numbers they're going to use for class issues. Be in groups, be available like publicly, not you saying, we can meet this side in private or something. That is my submission.
Thank you. Let's just quickly then have just quick concluding remarks in maybe a minute or 30 seconds. Then we can call off the show. I'll just begin with you, then I'll conclude with the gentleman. You, praise, and then the gentleman.
Conclusion. Let's have the integrity, like the dignity and everything. Put yourself in this position of I'm this queen. Where will it be heard of that this happened? At least hold your
Put some value to yourself.
put value to yourself, so that you don't be the person that is going to be victimized, or the person that going to give reference to. Remember this girl, she used to do this. Remember this lecturer, they chased him from campus because of this. So
Perfect. Praise.
Conclusively, around this problem, definitely we have found out that students, we ourselves, most times, are the ones that put ourselves out there, to be predated on, or intentionally feel like it's a cheaper price to pay, But at the end of the day, there are things more than the university, things that intrinsically build who we are and our personality and what people are going to remember us for or define us as after the university stage of life. You won't be 20 forever or 30 forever, as you will move out of that stage and there'll be something on your name. A bad name is easily earned, but erasing that bad name to earn a good name becomes hard at the end of the day. So really, personal integrity, like Precious said, is really important. But also universities, we need to realize that at the core of this whole issue, we have more at stake than the lecturer, than the student, who may get away with it, So how do we build our systems to ensure that, yes, praise and lecturer X can have as much thigh as they want, but our marks at the end of the day that will reflect on the portal of this girl or boy are not going to be compromised. They'll be their exact marks.
Yeah, perfect. Gentlemen.
Yeah, they usually say you reap what you sow. If you're a student and you think thigh power, I'm sorry for
It's a casual comment.
yeah, but if you think that's what's going to get you marks, maybe someday, some other time, you have to reflect. Someday, if you're going to get kids, is it the same thing that you want? It's the same way that you want your children to get these marks? If you are a lecturer and this is what you are using to give marks to students, bear in mind that you also have children. Is it the same way that you want your children to be treated? If you're an academic institution, let there be policies that are aimed at preventing this. There should be systems that should be able to protect all students from getting involved in this. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Thank you. You've heard it there from our panelists tonight. It's been a very thrilling and exciting but well-informed conversation that we have had here today. Tonight we've been discussing defilement in schools and sex for marks in universities. I've been joined by Ms. Aloikin Praise from Makerere University, Mr. Haruna Nyombi from Islamic University in Uganda, Kampala campus, and Ms. Precious Ajuna from Uganda Christian University. Otherwise, my name is Douglas Onen. I've been your host tonight, and see you again, same time, same place. Bye-bye.